What's up you guys, and welcome back to another Reddit reading video. Before this video even starts, I want to say thank you guys again for supporting these commentary videos. You guys are just freaking awesome. If you are watching these videos and you love them and you want to see more of them, do not forget to subscribe at any time during the video. We are shooting for 1,000 subscribers by the end of this month. I know that's a big goal because we're projected to hit it in 3 months. But shoot for the stars, you know? So let's get into the video. Now for one of my favorite subs, r/ProRevenge, which I found through r/, which you probably know if you've seen this video. I think everyone knows him. Shady, former colleagues bullied me into quitting a small town teaching job, so I had their entire school shut down. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. Throwaway, of course, and I apologize for the long story. This happened a few years ago, but it was recent enough that one of those deservedly affected by the fallout might still be looking for me and might recognize the events I'm going to describe. So of course, names, locations, and other details will have slight alterations. Think of it like transforming a left Ked slip-on to a right Louis Vuitton stiletto. Different enough, but still a shoe. And it fits. I've always been a shy person, and I grew up in a large urban area. In high school, I had friends, but we were the nerdy type and thought of as losers. I was one of the 2 girls of our core friend group of 4 kids. Of course, we eventually dated the guys in our group. The youngest in our group was one of the boys, Doug, in 9th grade, and the oldest was a boy, Clayton, in 11th. The other girl, Sarah, and I were in 10th. I dated Doug all through high school, for which I was relentlessly teased by people outside of our group because he was a bit more than a year younger than me. Sarah and Clayton married in college and are still happily married 5 years later. Doug and I, for our part, got married once he finished college, and we've been married almost 4 years. We have a 1-year-old daughter, Raquel. Both Doug and Clayton eventually got careers in IT. Sarah and Clayton have their own 1-year-old daughter, Amber. Sarah has a small but thriving home business selling refurbished furniture on eBay that she and Clayton find on the weekends. The reason I give so much backstory is that our friend group is pretty isolated. Chalk it up to years of bullying, being made fun of, excluded, you name it. It happened to all 4 of us in school. Even in primary and middle school. Even now, in my later 20s, I don't really have close friends besides Sarah, Clayton, and of course my husband Doug, who is my best friend. This is true, even though we moved all the way to the Midwest for Doug's career, we're still close enough and well off enough so we can regularly fly out and see our friends and vice versa. Doug makes more than enough money to support all 3 of us on his salary alone, especially in our state, and always says it's okay if I'm a stay-at-home mom. However, in this new environment, I thought I might have a fresh start to work on being more outgoing, as it were. No one in my new town knew me from when I was a kid and a total reject. Doug's father passed away, and so his mother lives with us and has generously helped take care of Raquel. We all talked it over and agreed I could go back to college to get a teaching certification for my bachelor's degree, math. Fast forward just a few months, and thanks to an accelerated program and shortage of math teachers in my area, I got my teaching license quite quickly and easily. I also made a few new girlfriends in the teaching program, which helped my self-esteem. So I put in my resume, and within just a few short weeks, I get hired at an independent studies charter school. I was looking to get hired at a regular high school, but whatever. It was a credit recovery school. Basically, the idea of the kids who washed out their regular school district or couldn't succeed there for whatever reason could try to succeed in our setting. We hosted grades 9 through 12. Students would make appointments and come in on their own time, meet independently with teachers, be given assignments and projects, and basically earn a legit high school diploma eventually. I knew it was kind of weird to go back to a place, high school, where I never fit in, but I thought it would be totally different from the perspective of an adult. The school was one large classroom, like the size of a basketball court, with administrative offices, science labs, even an exercise room for PE, all around the perimeter. About 50 student desks were lined around the center of the room in rows, and around these desks were about a dozen teachers. Generally, we'd have 2 teachers per subject area, i.e., 2 English, 2 math, 2 history, etc. And we each had our own roster of students and ensured that they visited all the teachers for whose subject they owed credits. Although the school officially had over 200 students on the various rosters, there were really more than 10 or so students in school at any one time due to different appointments throughout the day. That meant that there was tons of downtime where the teachers would just shoot the breeze with one another. The school had a female principal, a male vice principal, and a male counselor. The other math teacher was a male, both English teachers were female, both science teachers were male, the PE teacher was a male, the art teacher was female, The history teachers were one male and one female. There was also a male computer teacher and a female music teacher, both whom came in once a week. I could see right away from day one that all the teachers were good friends with one another. That's not a bad thing at all. Lunch is at noon every day and the school shuts down for a whole hour. Typically, the other teachers would all go out to lunch with one another, or break off in 2s and 3s. I didn't really know anyone, so I didn't take offense to anyone not inviting me to go to lunch with them. I thought, well, maybe give it a few weeks and it will change. I had that old feeling from when I was a kid of being rejected. Still, I was a new person, so I tried not to take it too personally. Besides, forming relationships, colleagues included, is a two-way street and I could reach out too. Till then, I was at the lunch desk. Sometimes I'd FaceTime hubby, who usually had lunch at that time too, but I was proud of him for making friends at his own work and tried to minimize taking up his time. I didn't really focus on that too much though, and just did my job. Students tended to like me after just a few weeks. It became noticeable that my students made more appointments to see me than other teachers. Every time a student would finish a project or an assignment for a teacher, whatever the subject, they would turn it into their main teacher, the one who had the student on their roster. It soon became clear that the students on my roster were finishing their assignments and graduating at a faster rate than my peers. I didn't plan for this to happen, it just turned out that way. Over time, holidays would pass and our school would have mandated social and team building functions, i.e. potluck in the break room, etc. It seems like I was making progress socially. I was always positive and nice to my peers and would be myself around them, try to tell them about me and learn about them. They were being nice to me too, at least to my face, so I thought I was finally fitting in. One day, however, the principal called me into their office to tell me someone had told her that I was smug and antisocial. And that it wasn't good for the school environment for teachers to bully one another. I was flabbergasted, and of course my initial reaction was to ask who told her this. But the principal said it was confidential and to just work on being nicer. I didn't want to seem intransigent or defiant, so I apologized for hurting anyone's feelings. But I also pointed out that I was trying my very best to fit in, and I had been working on the shortest compared to everyone else, so of course I didn't want to overstep. I also pointed out that students on my roster were graduating at a good pace. I didn't throw shade at anyone of my colleagues. My principal agreed with me on this and praised me heartily. The vice principal happened to be walking by and he overheard the principal praising me. He too threw in a comment that I was an exemplary teacher. The students were praising me in a private room to him, and the school had big plans for me, especially since we were on pace to outperform another independent studies charter school and a few miles away, which competed the same state function. This pleased me, of course, and took the edge off the butthurt of people telling the principal I was not nice. A small, maybe big, red flag was that they told me that students graduating meant massive funding for our school. Money which the regular district didn't want the charter schools to have. And if all the teachers could get more students to turn in work, we might get bonuses. I mean, all that is good, but both of them spoke about students graduation only in terms of how it could benefit our own pocketbooks. Ever since I started working at the school, what had originally been 5 students, 10 at the most working in a classroom at a time, became 20 or more. Almost every one of them a kid on my roster. Every day hanging out for hours and hours doing their work in our quiet classroom environment. I thought this was great because this meant they could graduate sooner and get on with their lives. Gradually, however, I noticed that some of my peers looked resentful when the classroom was so full. I strongly suspect this is because they had been growing accustomed to having long stretches of time simply mess about online at their desks, playing with their smartphones and gossiping. Our school had a policy that unless you were on break, you had to be at your desk and make yourselves available to grade student work in your subject area. They didn't like grading my students' work because eventually credit for that student graduating would go to me, their main teacher. I certainly didn't mind grading work from students who were on other teachers' rosters. That's the whole point of our job. Gradually, I came to realize that the school didn't focus so much on actually teaching the students anything and making sure that their diploma actually meant something than just rubber stamping their work and saying it was satisfactory, using the fact that we were licensed, credentialed, professional as official backup. Really, any reasonable, intelligent adult, or even kid, could do the type of work that some of my colleagues were actually doing. What happened was, say, a kid on my roster is behind 5 credits in English if he wants to graduate. I would then send him to the English teacher to request a packet of English work. Kid would do the work, give it to the English teacher to grade. She would sign off on it, I would input the grade in my computer, and the kid would be 1 credit closer to graduation. It soon became clear to me that the teachers weren't even actually looking at the package before giving them a grade, really just pulling grades out of their butts. I would never dream of doing that on any of my students' math work. That's the way they'd grade for me, but they'd do it in a slow way as to reduce the speed of students graduating from my roster. As in, they'd let piles of my students' work sit on their desk ungraded while playing Clash of Clans at their desk. I never said anything and I was always polite and friendly to them, even though I knew knew at least one of them had badmouthed me to the principal. Needless to say, even months into my new job, I wasn't making friends with my coworkers. I was nice to them, and it seemed at face value that they'd at least respect me on a professional level, at least to my face, so I'd accept that for the time being. The switch came when the principal actually singled me out at a staff meeting as an exemplary teacher. She said that I had come from big city and have succeeded to an amazing degree, and that I had set the record for how many students were graduating high school on my roster. From that point on, I sensed that people were being cold to me. It felt like a high school, except unlike high school, where they would openly mock me as a tall, skinny, no butt, no boobs having giraffe, adults said it in colder ways. On rare occasions, where the whole classroom was empty, or if I'd run into groups with them in the break room, they would talk about all these fun things that they were going to do together after work. Or even talk about the big party they were all going to have at such and such venue, and how everyone's invited, except, obviously. Well, I didn't mind actually. I wasn't going to let them being petty ruin my good feeling I had from helping students and feeling like I was making a difference. I was still very nice to everyone and kept up my positive attitude. Inside I felt so bad and so left out. However, I didn't tell my husband about basically being shunned at work, and instead I focused on just my success and getting students to graduate. Anyway, some of my students would actually quietly complain to me that Miss So-and-so doesn't even grade our work. I never bowed mouth my co-workers, especially to the kid. It's important to have a united front, of course, but on the sly, I'd separate those work packets that were clearly not graded properly and look them over myself as best I could. Although I was only licensed to teach math, if, say, a history packet seemed incomplete and yet had a B+, nice work, on the cover of it, I'd sort of quietly, as diplomatically as I could, staple a new cover sheet to it, ask the student to finish it for real, and submit it again to the teacher. I'd make sure the student asked the teacher to grade it in front of him or her, as he or she was eager to see the results of all their hard work. Although the teachers hated it when my kids did this, I did make sure my students' work was legitimately graded as possible. Somewhat surprisingly, students appreciated my determination that they didn't BS their way through what was obviously a BS school. When it came to other teachers' students coming to me with math packets, I did the professional thing and actually went over the packets and gave the tests and quizzes as prescribed in the employee handbook for our schools and as mandated by our state. The other teachers didn't like this. I guess because they were used to teachers just rubber stamping the work and passing, regardless of whether or not it was completely done. Invariably, teachers prefer to send their math kits to the other teacher because he had no problem just breezing through the packets as if they were flip books and assign whatever grade he dreamed of. However, even though for him to just scribble C+, please show your work for each question, on packet covers took no time at all, and he could go back to searching up dating profiles on OkCupid. I found out eventually he was already married. He resented the fact that he graded perhaps maybe 20 math packets in one day, whereas I graded maybe 5 because I graded them and assigned the test and everything, which of course took time. Eventually, other teachers began to grumble too, how it was taking too long to grade their kids' packets and thus slowing down their students' graduation, whereas mine was graduating relatively faster. I began to hear rumors that kids only came to see me, especially the boys, because they wanted to screw me. Naturally, the rumors eventually spread that I was banging the kids. Other rumors spread that I was unqualified to be a math teacher. What was a woman doing being a math teacher anyway? I was just trying to hook up with young studs, all sorts of nonsense. Still, more rumors spread that I was cheating with my graduation rates and that it was all fraud somehow. My husband Doug had actually come to see me on a couple of occasions at the school to go with me to my doctor's appointment, so the staff knew what he looked like. One day I had a phone on my desk when Clayton called to tell me the news that Sarah was coming to visit next month. Unfortunately, my reputation at the school, Clayton's contract avatar, showed up hugely on my phone screen when he called in the middle of the day, and one of my busybody coworkers happened to be walking by my desk, saw my phone, and made a face barely concealed contempt. Needless to say, rumors soon spread that I was cheating on Doug with some other young man, along with the high schoolers who I supposedly worked with off the clock. Still, I tried to grind it out. But I would plan my revenge too, if it came to that. I'm mature, but I'm not above getting even. I went through 12 years of junk growing up. I'll be danged if I resign myself to a lifetime of junk as a grown-up. I flatter myself that I was at least sort of cool in college. First thing I did was let my principal know what was going on. My plan was, if she addressed the bullying at the future meeting and put an end to it, then hey, I wouldn't even need to get revenge. I'd just go back to doing my job, minding my own business. I was kind of hoping the principal would back me up, as up until until now, aside from the red flag being obsessed with the school getting money and not with students learning anything, she seemed friendly enough, if a bit detached from her school's day-to-day operations. I told her that students would tell me quietly that Mr. So-and-so or Miss What's-Her-Name told them that I was dating a student or cheating on my husband. More than one kid would tell me these kinds of things. I knew the kids weren't trolling me, as over the months I'd established a good rapport with all of them. Principal basically gaslights me and tells me I'm being paranoid. It's a high school, she says. In high schools there's rumors. It's part of the territory. Yeah, I reply. But the rumors are usually from the students, not adults. She doesn't really address this, other than to tell me that I need to grow up and not let petty things like supposed rumors get to me. She tells me to be the bigger person. Nah. I should have mentioned that I had brought my cell phone in with me and had been recording the principal's responses to what I had been saying, which was good for the case I was building. Because as if on cue, the vice principal comes walking by once again, world's greatest Chad, coffee mug in hand. Oh hey Mr. Vice Principal dude, come on in really quick. I thought principal was going to tell him about my concerns about the rumors that I basically both an adulterer and also trying to go to jail for illicit fun with minors. But no, instead, principal and vice principal complained to me that I'm being too thorough in my grading of math work from students on other teachers' rosters. I explained that I'm trying to do my job according to the employee handbook they themselves given me, and according to the 2-day training seminar standard for all teachers of independent study schools where I live, they had mandated I attend prior to my first day of employment. They tell me I need to play ball and that our task was to get these kids out the door with a diploma in hand. I counter with, what good is a diploma if they don't actually know any history, or how to read, or how to use the scientific method, or whatever. Principal actually calls me pretentious wannabe female Jamie Escalante, a famous calculus teacher. They both strongly encourage me to use my professional judgment, i.e. place my teaching license in jeopardy by assigning passing marks to work that is clearly not passing. I get all of this on record, and I make sure to email a backup copy of the MP3 to my outside email address. Our school plays a slick when it comes to the school board inspecting our paperwork. Whenever the principal knows the state is coming for our inspection of our packets, an audit they like to call it, they have each of us take extra special care to grade about 3 or 4 packets in the subject area very thoroughly. These packets were placed in a file cabinet in the middle of the classroom, as to imply they represent our average work. All other packets with BS grades on them go into the other file cabinets in the back that the school never invites the inspectors to look at. We tend to empty out students' folders into these file cabinets after they graduate. The school had a policy that once a packet was 3 months old, they only had to retain the cover with the teacher grades and comments to save cabinet space, thereby destroying evidence that actual packet behind the cover was never actually done properly. The phony cabinet in the middle of the classroom represents active work. The only sort of friends I made at the school was the music teacher and computer teacher, who taught small labs only once a week, and both whom had other full-time jobs and were married, not to each other, and had families. The music teacher taught at a local community college and did the charter schools as a side hustle, and the computer guy consulted and made 6 figures. I, therefore, didn't feel too much guilt about what I was going to do. Still, I quietly hinted at my plan to both of them on the day they came to campus, and both were like, do it. After getting the principal and vice principal and the counselor too, who just so happened to be walking by, all encouraged me to basically commit academic fraud. I thought, F them. I also suspected and later confirmed they had a secret buzzer system to surreptitiously call one another from their desks, which is why they always happen to be available at the same time when necessary or convenient. I snuck toward the filing area where all the BS students' work credits were stored, and day by day, over a period of 3 months, took video of hundreds of package covers, all of them labeled with academic grades, teacher comments, and teacher signatures. I, of course, also continued the videos to show page after page of blank work and incomplete work, non-essential work. English packets especially were rife in ridiculous gibberish, sometimes even mocking teachers like, Miss English teacher is a booty hole, and she doesn't even grade our work, lol. And the cover would have Miss English teacher's lady signature along with the A+, fantastic. You are such a talented writer. Sure enough, after 3 months, secretary, who was also kind of snooty and played on her smartphone and uploaded selfies to Instagram all day, even though she was like 55. Shredded mountains of bogus work and filed only 3 covers. Throughout this whole time, I had been slyly walking about the classroom in such a way that other teachers would think I wasn't trying to look at them or what was on the computer, and I'd catch a video of them on Facebook or Plenty of Fish or shopping on eBay, and they have a student interviewing right in front of them with the actual F. At home one day, I asked Doug how to do a remote microphone that I could control from far away. He's like, what for? Are you trying to be James Bond? But he's so smart and it's like child's play for him. so he personally rigs up one for me at work. Basically, it's like a wireless mic that isn't a detectable Bluetooth, and he sets up a way for me to turn it on and off from far away. I'm like, that's awesome. Can I have 10? He smiles, but he asks no questions because he's awesome like that. Next day, he has a dozen of them. I want it so there's no way devices appear when other teachers turn on their Bluetooth earpieces. I'm always the first at work because my coworkers tend to be irresponsible jerkholes. So even though everyone is supposed to be there at their desk by 8 AM, most of them drift in by 8:10, 8:20, and so on. I'm there at 7:30 just in case. I know the code how to get in keyless entry side door, let myself in, and slip a mic beneath everyone's desk. Each mic has a mini watch battery that is supposed to last quite a long time. I'll bring my own smartphone that I don't use anymore and make sure it was a huge capacity SD card that my husband got for me installed. I connected it as a wireless audio input for the mics. I then hit record, and every day for 2 weeks I hear the teachers, most of whom were wearing Bluetooth headsets. Ever since it became cool to yell gossip across the room, talking trash all day long. Totally unrelated to the work, saying the most inappropriate things about other teachers, the principal, even the kids. Some of these things these middle-aged women would say about what they would love to do with that young blonde god over there made me want to puke. Of course, these teachers were too stupid to simply text one another if they really want to sneak around and talk trash. To them, the Bluetooth thing was easier. It stung, but I knew I struck gold when I heard them spreading false rumors about me. Calling me a F&B, a pretentious big city loser with no friends. They definitely get me fired. They'd also talk about how they didn't grade and just pretend to, and that they were so glad they could just sit all day instead of teach the district. How it was a cushy job, how they were tricking the state inspectors during audits. Every day during my lonely lunches, when they all went off into, I don't know, Applebee's, I loaded up the previous day's MP3s into my real phone and edited out the dead air and keep all the good stuff. I then emailed these separate dated files to my outside email address. This whole time, I continued to grade normal. This whole time, I continued to grade as normal and take my time doing the job correctly. I knew I was going to pull the trigger soon anyway, but the last straw came when the latest student finished her last credit, coincidentally, a math one that I graded thoroughly, and now had enough credits to graduate. Every time a student graduates, we're supposed to blow party horns and give them a little congratulations trophy, and they'd get their diploma in the mail in a week or two later. Students had the option of attending a school-wide formal graduation at the end of the school year in June if they had graduated any time during that year from September onward. Most tended, however, to go right into the workforce or the local junior college or state school. So I blow this little party horn for this girl, and everyone in the classroom, students and teachers, clap enthusiastically. The girl's mom and dad and little brother came to that day to the classroom, and instead of having the photo with me, they all gave me a big hug. Later, I reviewed the audio recordings that day, and when the girl graduated, other teachers were saying I had switched teams and that I was into eating rug. They also said a lot of really mean things about her and her family, and a lot of totally racist. This family was Hispanic. All the teachers and admin, including me, are white. It just so happened that both the music teacher and the computer guy were on the campus that day. So, in true half-baked fashion, at the end of the day, when the classroom was empty, the students and teachers had the last 5 minutes to close down their computers. I walked from teacher to teacher, purse and other small belongings in hand, saying F you, F you, F you. Past the computer guy, you're cool. Passed by the music lady, you're cool. F you, F you, F you. I walk into the principal's office while the other teachers are still in shock. She's at her desk, and I know where her little buzzer button is beneath the desk. The computer guy told me about it because he was the one who installed it. I said, I'm quitting. I don't want to be a part of your criminal school. And just in case that buzzer was just a buzzer and not also a speaker, I pressed the PA button on her wall and said, Miss OP, I'm quitting today because you're all a bunch of hateful, unprofessional, mean-spirited a-holes. Except Mr. Computer and Miss Music, you're cool. I decided to finally take my darling Doug up on his offer for me to be a stay-at-home mom, and I'm cool with my mother-in-law. She can stay. Epilogue. I emailed our school district superintendent, our city's mayor, state governor, the entire school board, our local newspaper with all the files, photos, audio, and video I had taken, along with the terse one-page summary of what had been going on. Within weeks, every single one of the teachers and administrators, except the computer lab and the music lady, who I made a special effort to prove had partaked in no wrongdoing, had been fired and had their credentials at least suspended, and in most cases revoked outright. Only innocent parties like the custodial staff and like emerge with their reputation unscathed. All the teachers who worked at the school who had been named in the principal's board's inquiry as having participated in fraudulent practices were blacklisted from teaching there or anywhere. After a few weeks of initial turmoil, all the students currently enrolled at the school were, due to parental pressure, allowed to keep their existing credit completion statuses. Students who had already graduated did not have their diplomas rescinded. All students were given vouchers to enroll at the competing independent charter school down the road. My own former school was shut down, stayed abandoned for a couple of months, but eventually turned into an electronics store. All the other stuff happened within a month of my quitting, but I told my hubby about it on the very day I came home. His eyes lit up like Christmas, and the raging justice boner he developed was just so hard that I was knocked up with our second child even before my back hit the mattress. Clayton and Sarah thought it was pretty cool. I've since made new friends around town to go along with my computer guy and music lady and college friends, especially with other moms. Doug is killing it at work and is thinking of starting his own company. Life is good. TLDR, don't F with the quiet ones. My lord. First of all, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but that story took me 57 minutes and 11 seconds to read. But that was a roller coaster of, that was so detailed in the backstory that I was like, man, this is probably going to get really good. I haven't read it before. I was like, this is my first time reading it, the entire thing. And this probably is by far one of my favorite ProRevenge stories. Like, she went secret agent with the mics underneath desk, walking by with her video, getting a triple, quadruple, quintuple terabyte of SD storage for her phone, cut up the video by herself, send it out to an offshore email. She'd send it to the district superintendent, the mayor, the governor, the entire school board, the local newspaper. She showed everybody. I'm surprised I didn't get the email. This on ProRevenge, I would say, is nuclear revenge, only because she got an entire building of people fired. You have to have some really high confidence in your plan to go out with this too. Congrats on her, like, keeping her wits during all this too, because I know how hard it can be when you feel lonely and you're getting bullied and all that. Like, good job to you. I'm glad life is good. Thank you guys for watching this Reddit readings video. I hope you guys enjoyed this because I definitely did. Like, I gotta save this because it's so good. Remember, we're trying to hit 1,000 subs by the end of June. So if you like that story, if you want to hear more stories, you want to stick around, then do not be scared to subscribe. We have a Reddit Readings Instagram page too. It's I was gonna say mostly just memes. It's actually all just memes, but you know, you can message me there. You can say that you came from my YouTube and I'll follow you on Instagram. Thank you guys again for watching and goodbye.